So yeah, we have a lot of fun stuff going on here. I'm glad some of you like the artwork. I mean, if you think something is in bad taste, let me know. I'm open to opinions. And we could talk about it if you think something is jarring or inappropriate. I'd hope not. But there you go. You got a little history behind the art that you're seeing on the channel. There's a weird GIF in the bottom corner. Needs more frames. Which corner are you talking about? For any opinion anyone has, I will definitely have a counter opinion. And since I'm a superior sheep being, my word is I am the law. It takes a lot to bother me, but time for this monkey to head towards bed. All right, Lazy. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate it. Every time you stop by and you share a little wit and wisdom with us. Oh, a joke on the webkit. Got it. Mr. Wolfie, I will mention this too. There is an ability, if you all ever want to do like a sort of an impromptu roleplay thing, there is the mask extension that is located, or that you can find down below. And what that'll do is that'll put a mask on me. And I'll show you an example of it. You ready? Here we go. Ah, I am a dwarf and I'm digging a hole. Diggy, diggy hole. Diggy, diggy hole. Ah, yes. That's the good stuff. I'll do one more for y'all. Oh, yes, I wonder what the poor people are doing today. Shall we wage war? Shall I find some other way to frivolously spend the treasury? I wonder what's for dinner. Oh, the life of an aristocrat is fraught with indecision and peril. Never seen that before. Should be like this permanently. Wouldn't that be fun? So the effect lasts a while, and it's something if you ever want to put a hat on my head, the option to do so is down below. It talks about masks. D&M says it was the wrong time to eat something. Oh, yeah. Yep. Well, hopefully I didn't make you do a spit take or gag, because, have you seen me? I am so scraggy looking right now, and that dwarf face didn't make me look any better. Currently on the phone walking. Oh, well, I hope that I was able to give you a bit of a chuckle. Ooh, pardon me. All right, so what are we doing? What are we doing? I want to take the first step in drawing campaign elements. Pardon me, geez, a hiccup. Anyway, sorry about that. I want to take the first steps in drawing information off of our characters so that we can include it into an adventure that we as DMs can run for them. And we're going to start by looking at aspects of a setting. Where will at least the majority of the campaign or adventure take place? Where can we find inspiration? As a dungeon master, we may very well know that what type of a game we want to run. Mystery, horror, even like sci-fi fantasy, high fantasy stuff. But what are ways that we can hook our characters into the setting instead of just having them coexist and saying, this is generic Western European fantasy setting, which I think we all treat by default as the setting. You know, you get all 4 seasons. There's various similar cultural norms, and that's fine. I'm not gonna poo-poo on that. But how does that engage with your players? And if you all are going to get together once or twice a week or whatever, and you're going to play for a couple hours or even have marathon sessions, how is that going to keep everyone coming back for more and wanting to affect the world in which they live? After all, why do you have an adventure, right? You want to solve a problem. And that could be for wealth, for personal glory, for civic duty. There's a lot of different reasons for that. Yes, Tamrick, this is part 2. We're going to talk about crafting a setting. So let's take a look. What are some setting clues that we can get from our first character we generated, Sylvia Shadowleaf? Well, we have an urchin who has the background feature of city secrets. So somewhere involved is a city, right? She lived in a city. She grew up. She was raised as an orphan. I mean, she's an elf, but she's only 48. She's not even considered an adult by traditional elven standards as described by the player's handbook. She might as well be a child prodigy as far as the elves are concerned in that context. All right, so we have this high elf. Cleric of nature who grew up in the city. She can charm animals and plants. Gallows Adler, thank you very much for the follow and welcome. You're in just as we're getting going here. Good day, Maduder. Well, good day to you. Taking a look at our background, I eat like a pig and have bad manners. I bluntly say what other people are hinting or hiding. Change. The low are lifted up and the high and mighty are brought down. Change is the nature of things. I owe a debt I can never repay to the person who took pity on me, and I'll never fully trust anyone other than myself. So I think we have someone who's pretty much contained to the city here, maybe with the exception that she is a nature, a cleric of nature. Now that could be the worship of the seasons, of storms. Well, I mean, there's the Tempest cleric, but fertility, that kind of a thing. So she could be called out to help with animal husbandry, or to bless the crops, or to pray for rain. Someone to usher in the seasons through the equinoxes and the solstices. If you want, you could even approach this kind of like druid circles. In fact, druid circles, you'll notice, there are 8 different biomes, rather broad ones, in which druids get these effective domain spells or oath spells, kind of an equivalent, right? And if we wanted to, we could say that, so yes, she does follow a deity or a philosophy of nature. Does she specialize in something else? And if that's the case, then we can open up our dice roller again from our character generator. And then if any of you want this, !dice or !bones will bring up the link here. Let's just roll a d8 and say that her aspect of nature worship is focused around what? We could roll 1 or 2 things if we want to. But let's roll 1 for now. 2. So what is number 2? The coast. Okay. Let's come back here. So it could be a very maritime religion. It could cross over a bit into Tempest, and that's fine because, the different faiths can bleed over each other. This, though, might be about conservation, about aquaculture. This could be about, what would a nature domain focus on? Weather and bountiful harvest of fish or kelp. All right, so these are some setting prompts that we can extract from Sylvia. Let's go to Casayella. Here we have a half-orc who may not be a half-orc. She may very well just be human. But her dabbling in necromancy reinforced her body, and gave it mechanical half-orc elements. So she's a necromancer, a folk hero, who rescued a bunch of weapons from a noble's castle or manor. So somewhere here is a castle or a manor, as well as an area for the people. What else are we finding here? In her background, I'm confident in my own abilities and do what I can to instill confidence in others. When I set my mind to do something, I follow through no matter what gets in my way. Respect people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. A proud noble once gave me a horrible beating, and I will take my revenge on any bully I encounter. And I have trouble in trusting in my allies. Now, because she's a wizard, now we had described, I know I keep saying now and adding qualifiers here. We had said that she had found a book of necromancy in her abusive noble household. And she's not a noble because she is only, well, half noble by blood in the prompts that we were going over. And you can see the character creation in VODs or eventually on Twitch at the end of the week here. On YouTube. We're on Twitch now. But we also have things like land vehicles. Or, oh, you know what? We didn't roll for her tool proficiency. As a folk hero, you are proficient in a set of artisan's tools. And you know what? Let's roll for that real quick. What does she enjoy making? What is her skill? Let's see. Artisan's tools. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Let's make a 17-sided die and find out what she makes. 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Mason's tools. We'll go and add this onto her character sheet here. Good for building or breaking into crypts. So she's used to driving, or she can drive also land vehicles. So we're getting some other clues about the world in which this character lives. There's roads. And if she's proficient with Mason's tools, there is going to be some kind of perhaps a quarry or mountain that we could draw some inspiration from. As a necromancer, we're talking about, raising the dead. She was digging up dead folks as part of who she is and what she does here. So there would be some sort of cemetery. Okay. You know, I'm drawing random stuff. If you see something else, feel free to say so. You're always looking to learn new things. Will Gallows, if you have questions along the way, you're welcome to ask about what we're doing here immediately or in general. I may be presenting a workshop. That doesn't mean we can't help solve a problem or a question that you have. So is she like a Franken half orc? Not necessarily. This was an exercise, Tamric. There were two main lines of thinking we're considering for this character. We rolled a half orc, and she may well be a half orc. In the story that we're telling about her as a possibility, her father could have gone off as a noble to war, and ended up with a daughter from the enemy. And we're going to presume that they were fighting orcs. And brought the daughter back, and of course, we have nobles, and now we're presented with, this bastard child, this love child of war, and we were saying that his wife was very henpeckish or browbeating. Not that, I understand you could feel emotionally charged about discovering this, but we're talking like, evil stepmother, kind of like absolute incessant, just grinding as more the matron, where the returning father just sort of like gave up and kind of grew fat, lazy, and dispassionate in his duties, because he has the wife that doesn't want to give up the marriage, but also can't let go of what had happened, regardless of the circumstances, no matter how he tries to explain it. And so we actually have a half orc, as in a human orc hybrid, or something that we discovered as well, or not. I don't want to say discover like we invented it in 5th edition. She could still be a bastard, but she could be fully human. Mechanically, she's a half orc, and how we can describe her being a human but having these half orc traits such as dark vision and relentless endurance, which keeps you up when you should fall down otherwise. It's like a focus sash in Pokemon. Was that when she was cleaning the house, she found this necromancy grimoire, and it started teaching her magic. And as she learned magic, her body was suffused with necromantic magic. And so when she takes that otherwise lethal hit, relentless endurance kicks in, because that's kind of an undead trait. It modified her eyes so she can see in the dark, such as undead can, right? It makes her attacks, if she were to attack, more savage, because she has that pure strength. She doesn't care about tearing a tendon or whatever. She has that raw undead strength and presence. So mechanically, she's a half orc. Cosmetically, she's a human. No, not an orc stepmother. It would have been an orc enemy on the field of battle that was brought back. Although, if you want to turn it on its, if you do want to turn it on its ear, and you say that it's an orcish family and that everyone is orcs, but they brought back a half human, you could do that too. No problems with that. You're a newbie, Gallows? Well, welcome. You are in a very newbie-friendly channel. There's no bad questions to ask here. Does a necromancer require a cemetery these days, or is that particular interpretation? You do need a body for either a pile of bones or a corpse for a zombie. I guess you're a veteran role player, but it's your 3rd time playing D&D. Gonna give Wizard a go? Well, if you have questions about it, Gallows, hey, ask here. In fact, you might even find people who have other opinions than me, which is absolutely fine, because now it becomes a buffet of choices for you. Is there a good reason to make the half-orc parents humans and not orcs? I don't know. Marlborough, did she work as an apprentice undertaker? Not that we have crafted or discovered. She could. Not necessarily a reason why she couldn't. And some things we're talking about, though. I mean, so if she had the mason's tools, maybe she worked there because she got this tool set to help repair the family mansion. This could have been building, she worked out in the graveyard, and the mason's tools are for making tombstones or mausoleums. And of course, she'd be given the hard physical labor because she's the unwanted noble child. But of course, they're proper and can't just kick her out to an orphanage, like, proper. So these are some prompts that we're getting from Casayella here. Now let's go over to Wickert. And by the way, you all can conjecture and ask questions. Just because I'm moving along doesn't mean we still can't contemplate these things. Feel free to. While we're doing this, I'm pulling stuff out. What could be some other setting clues that Wickert brings to us as the dungeon master, right? We've taken off our hat as a player character, and now we have our DM caps on. Well, as a ranger, this is nice and easy, right? We have another high elf, by the way. Has a criminal contact, so there's some sort of a criminal network, which generally works in a more urban environment. Not that it can't, have like a Pony Express through the countryside. We have favored enemies of celestials and fiends, so we can presume that there's something around that this is enough of a threat that she can train against and be prepared for. Also, as a ranger, hey, you get Natural Explorer. That means that we have Underdark and Coast are the areas that so far in her adventure that she's explored, or that she'd be capable of traversing more easily. Uh-oh. Did you see, by virtue of random rolls, we're getting some redundancy here? Now, bear in mind, if all of these were level 1 characters, she probably wouldn't have the Coast already, because we generated the characters at random levels. They're all kind of this. It's close to the same, but just to point it out. Anyway, let's keep going here. Defensive fighting style, primeval awareness, extra attack, and land stride. She will get a companion of some kind. By the way, this is another child prodigy who is apparently very heavy. This should probably be more like 46 pounds. And probably drop her more to like 3'6" or something. I always have a plan for what to do when things go wrong. I'm always calm no matter what the situation. I never raise my voice or let my emotions control me. Honor. I don't steal from others in the trade. I will become the greatest spy that ever lived. And an innocent person is in prison for a crime that I committed, and I'm okay with that. So there's a prison somewhere in this character's life. Next up, let's take a look at Nala Smithy. We have a trickery cleric, imposter charlatan, human. This is the Fagin character of the Oliver Twist of all the other, like, apparently all the other kids that exist in the group here. So we made the connection that she apparently is a nature domain cleric, and probably the one that was the one teaching Sylvia, because she is an older matron style character. Let's see. I pocket anything I see that might have some value. Sarcasm and insults are weapons of my choice. Fairness. I never target people who can't afford to lose a few coins. I swindled and ruined a person who didn't deserve it. I seek to atone for my misdeeds, but might never be able to forgive myself. And I can't resist swindling people who are more powerful than me. So definitely Nala here needs to have some sort of influence of wealth. And that could be because it's a city, because there are skills, because there's a gold mine nearby, or something along those lines. So we have an aspect of wealth, and most of wealth is derived from nature. Through precious metals or wood, or being in some sort of a trade. And we also have a trickster god, but she's also she has to be in an environment where there are these organized religions. And if she is of this, if her alternate identity is as a nature domain cleric, this would lead way then that the nature domain, if we already made the link above, is coastal influence. Underdark and Seas, we can combine them. We can keep them separate, or we can combine them very easily, Gallows. In fact, if you want to get an idea for how that works, when we were teaching a new DM how to do some world building and creation, she came up with a very good underwater cave complex system. And you can find that video fairly recently in our YouTube videos. If you go to our Discord, and you go to our past broadcasts, all of our workshops, you can find our new DM training where she talks about that. And also, another week prior, we combined the Underdark and the Coast, and we simply made it a rather claustrophobic labyrinth of mangrove. So it was like a mangrove forest. So you have this natural cave system on the water, made up of a bunch of mangrove trees that were forming caverns and caves of all the arched roots and the canopy and all the unique and extra deadly things that lived, you know, above in the canopy and below in the water. So we can take the prompts literally, or we can step sideways with them and examine them in some sort of interesting fusion if we desired. Question that the chat might be able to answer: sorcerers have a natural talent for magic, wizards learn it, and warlocks are given it. But does someone have to have a spark or talent for the arcane to learn and use magic? Or is it simply study, study, study for wizards? Yes, Tamrick, new DM training. Presumably, wizardry is open to anyone who can understand the methodology. And so, if the person's capable of learning, they could be an absolute, like a poor, unfortunate soul. You know, an urchin that was adopted by a wizard's tower and then was just given an education, and they could become a powerful wizard. It could be a noble who's since he or she could learn to write and read, was taught words and magic symbols and math and all this other stuff. So anyone can become a wizard as long as you have the capability of understanding the magic. But not everyone is born a sorcerer. In other words, a mutant, if you think about it. You know, that's your mutant power. Or, you know, goes and is blessed with magic like a cleric or a warlock because of your deity or patron. Can you explain the new DM training and maybe post a link? It's Tamrick, are you on our Discord? All right, so Tamrick, if you go to stream content right here, it has the save. It has a 3.5 floppy disk, which is now kind of universally, I guess, the save button. You can find our past broadcasts here. Now, I did not put up the painting broadcast because I didn't think that made for interesting YouTube videos. But when we do workshops like this, the videos end up on YouTube at the end of the week, as well as the stuff that we ended up making. So, for example, did you like Aura Star Crown? So here's a little blurb. You can watch her be made, and you can download her character sheet. This was, well, actually here's the maps that we made in Paint for the session that you're watching draw out. As everything builds. So let's detail a sandbox campaign region, and that was on the heels of let's make a sandbox campaign region, and you can watch everything play out step by step, and you can download the documents. Look, here's our maps. Here's our document for the sandbox region, so you can play with it. So here, let's help a new DM forming a setting, generating content for it. And this is where she's talking about stuff like Underwater Underdark. But this was the week. If you come up here, how do I DM? Featuring the Fox in a Box. And you can watch the series piecemeal here on Discord, or if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, then you can watch it as a part of the series there too. But all of this, now her stuff I didn't make public because that was her stuff. But when we make stuff here, I open it up to you. You can download this map if you want. This is the mangrove forest. Well, it wasn't a mangrove forest, really. This is actually mushrooms that desalinate water. And that's how you actually have brackish and fresh water right up against the coast. Because they pass through these this like tangled mushroom mangrove like barrier reef going on. And these are all the routes. Like these would be the caves through the Underdark in this system here. And we got Underdark and Arctic. And that was the prompt up here that turned into a glacier that had a bunch of tunnels running through it. But anyway, it's all there for you. Have fun with it. I want you to feel empowered and educated, and that you have access to not just mentors, myself and the others on the channel, but you have access to the resources that we've produced. And you can watch it be made so you understand it. You know, because I could just hand you a map and say, there you go, have fun with it. And you can look at it and go, oh, wow. But if you're not taught how the map was made, or what are the subtle nuances, or what were the considerations, then it's just a piece of colorful paper. I don't for that, Tamarick, but here, let me bring this back up. All right, we come down to mentoring right here. So this is where you can find mentors. If you have questions about Roll20 and how to use it, how to set stuff up, you can go to this channel, Roll20 and streaming advice. And you can ask a question here about setting stuff up in Roll20, about how things are used and that. So there's an entire mentoring section of the Discord that's meant to help people out. Gallows was asking about a lost spell book. If you go to Classes, Wizard, it says right here in this green section about your spell book. This is on page 114. 114. And I hope this helps you out, Gallows. All right, so we're drawing information, and if you have any more questions, either of you or anyone else, feel free to ask. So this is the information that we had on Nala. Now, lastly, what is some information we can extract from our freshly minted Maraschino? All right, so we have someone who's a smuggler, so there must be a source of goods, of something smuggleable, especially by a 9-year-old child. Tamarick, yes. It's our RPG here. So right here under mentoring, where it says RPG workshop and has a little hammer, if you have trouble making a game or you want to create a monster or something, you can ask here. Yep, all of it should be labeled on the Discord. We have another criminal contact, so perhaps another criminal network. I would rather make new friends than a new enemy. I'm incredibly slow to trust. Those who seem the fairest often have the most to hide. And so we're really talking about a lot of people, right? She works in and amongst people. She wants to be around them, even if she doesn't always trust them. She likes greed, so there's something about wealth. Ill-gotten gains support my family, and I turn tail and run when things look bad. All right, so we have gone over our characters, and we've pulled some cursory information from them. And we can see that there's a very urban feel to this party. And so if we're going to be considering a setting, I definitely think a city is going to be is going to take a lot of I don't know if it'd take it. It would be a great setting for these characters. A city would. These characters, I bet, would have an awesome time in Waterdeep. For any of you who've played in Waterdeep, whether it was a pre-gen adventure like Dragon Heist, or you use it as a setting yourself or something, all of these characters would work fantastically in Waterdeep. Yes, Bullywug that worship Froghemoths. On D&D time last Friday, we had encountered that. I actually helped a Froghemoth escape regicide from Bullywugs, who were discontent with its ruling. And I rode the Froghemoth out into the swamp for safety. All right, so this is our settlement concept sheet. This is going to help us develop an area for our adventure to take place. It was a lot of fun, Tretch. In fact, is D&D time still broadcasting? Let me check real quick. There's going to be audio from them if they are. No, they're offline, so they finished. So you could go over to the letter D, the letter N, the letter D time, and you can watch their past videos. And I play with them generally on Fridays in their first slot. It's a lot of fun. And I would suggest you go and visit them in their community. If you go to dndtime.stream, that's their website. You can find their Discord link. Oh, it's an awesome community. I would highly suggest it, especially if you want to play. They're very new player friendly also. But if you want to play some D&D, go sign up and play with those boys. All right, so from our prompts, everything doesn't have to be randomly rolled. We're definitely getting urban, and we are getting this coastal influence. Now, we did have a ranger that was delving in the Underdark. And the Underdark could be natural or supernatural caverns. The Underdark we could also take as an extensive system of sewers or underground tunnels and paths and walkways and such. We could even take it as a little bit of both, where there's an Underdark style that, is man-made with transit tunnels or sewers, but maybe the city could be built on a natural cave system that even sort of formed, that sort of formed things it helped the water flow, because of course a city needs water. Oh, speaking of D&D time, Trustaflumph is here. If any of you have questions about D&D time, you can ask Trustaflumph, and Trustaflumph can verify that I did, in fact, help save a Froghemoth from a Bullywug coup d'etat and rode it out into the sunset swamp. Was it good gluten? Like, was it an amazing piece of pizza or something, Trustaflumph? All right, so pulling this off, again, this party 100% could operate in Waterdeep very well. But let's take this as type 1. There's definitely going to be a coast. Now we know there's going to be a city. I'm not worried about the city. We'll get to that shortly. We know there's going to be a coast. What is another biome that is adjacent to the coast? Now, this is something that I do. You could roll for 2 or 3 biomes that all kind of squish together. Whoop. Oh, I had D&D time open. And now y'all host me for an echo effect. Thank you very much. I hope you had a lot of fun this Friday. It was pretty tasty, so bloated but worth it. Hey, the fourth ghost, welcome back. So how do you, if we're looking for random prompts or if we want inspiration, because we're not sure what other biome could be adjacent to a coast? Well, let's open our player's handbook to page 68. Shall we? Yes, we shall. Druid circles and rangers break down terrain into 8 broad categories. And so, it would make sense as a DM if your players have abilities that can be expressed in these broad biomes. Your world could be broken down into these 8 biomes as well. And so we've determined that there's a coast because that touches on about every character in some way. What butts up against the coast? Let's roll 1d8 and find out for purposes of making our map. We rolled a 3. And a 3 is a desert. So we have desert and a coast. So this is probably some sort of a port city. By the way, num num num, aloe. And now this could be helping to define our concept or to give us even more ideas. So our main terrain types of this settlement are desert and coast. We could think of Egypt and Nile. We could think of, desert could be kind of just more rocky, more barren, more arid land. We could get sort of like a Babylonia and Tigris and Euphrates. Kind of, pick a place, in the Fertile Crescent. It could be a Great Lake. We could be talking about, this could be Salt Lake City. Just a fantasy version of Salt Lake City. So instead of a coast, this could be a shore. I live on the shore of Lake Erie. So I could talk about that ecosystem all day. Yeah, we could be going out to the Dead Sea. These are merely prompts that are going to get us thinking. All right, now let's open up our Dungeon Master's guides. It's not page 16. I got to correct this. I think it's like on page 18. Yeah, there we go. All right, so you see here, forms of government. What kind of government rules over this land? The city is the capital or the source of power, perhaps. We're going to roll a percentile set, and let's find out what's going on here. We rolled a 53. And a 53 is a hierarchy. Whoops, I don't need that. A feudal or bureaucratic government where every member except one is subordinate to another member. In the Dragonlance campaign setting, the dragon armies of Krynn form a military hierarchy with the Dragon High Lords as leaders under the Dragon Queen Takesis. Yes, we are now in the Dungeon Master's Guide, Tamarick. So this is a very structured society. Everyone has someone to respond to. Everyone has a place. Now, this is also something that is... this is something that I just prefer. You can do it differently at home. Have at it. I like every place to have 3 interesting things. And whether those are 3 interesting things in a city, and then 3 interesting things in the county, then 3 interesting things in the state, then 3 interesting things that are in the country. Things that draw our eye. And how I break it down using the charts available in the Dungeon Master's Guide, not that you can't come up with your own, but for sake of going through these exercises, of imagining, of using things as inspiration. I like rolling 2 monuments in a weird locale. So we are going to roll 3d20. 4, 14, and 14. All right, let's check out what that means. For our monuments, I'm going to scoot this over just a little bit here so we can read. Monument number 4 is giant statues carved out of a mountainside or cliff. And monument number 14 is a great stone wall intact with tower fortifications spaced at 1 mile intervals. Well, all right, so we have a structured society. It could be, the walls could be defensive. It could be a warlike. In the example of the hierarchy, it did mention that organization for the Dragon Armies of Krynn were a hierarchy. The walls could also be, if this is coastal, we could be dealing with something like an archipelago. And the walls are also bridges that could help trade. And they can also defend the interior of this place. Let's think. How would this work? We might think, oh, sure, Great Wall of China. But yet we're dealing with a desert and a coastal area or a shore. Pardon. In some variety. Now, our weird locale. Our weird locale is number 14. A haunted hill or barrow mound. Tamarick, I'm sorry. I guess it's up here. Mapping a wilderness is on 108, and then we go to the next page here for weird locales, and then when we start getting into our settlement rolls, it's what page 112. That's right here. So it's all listed for you. All right, so we have a haunted hill or barrow mound. Could that be its own little island? Could that be one of the fortifications on the wall that's considered haunted? Kind of like Castle Black. No, wait, it wasn't Castle Black. No, wait, it was Castle Black in Song of Ice and Fire. But yeah, so there's this great ice wall, right? Several castles were built along it, and one of the castles was considered to be especially haunted. Another good example would actually be from Dragonlance also, and that was Lord Soth's castle. I forget the name of it. So we have a haunted hill or a barrow mound. Nothing saying that we couldn't have a haunted castle. All we know is it's something haunted that is a natural feature or was built and contains some kind of tomb or burial area. Now let's go to settlements on page 112. Again, this is something that I do. You don't have to. If only Dragonborn live in your world, which is absolutely fine, then Dragonborn it is. Using the races the 9 races that are in the player's handbook, let's roll. We'll make 2d9, and we'll put in the dominant race and the minority race. Seven and 3. And so 7 and 3 are going to be halflings and elves. halflings and elves. Could this be high elves? We have 2 high elf characters. This was some good aloe juice. My goodness. Now, just because it says here that the dominant race is halflings, does that mean that they're the ones in charge? Not necessarily. And we'll get to that. This could be dominant in terms of sheer numbers. This could be dominant in wealth, but not political power. Political power, but not wealth. Both. But let's continue. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So we have halflings of some variety and elves of some variety. Elf could be drow. I mean, we could roll for it if we really wanted to. We could do, odds and evens for the type of halfling. We could go, 1 out of 3 for the type of elf. If we do want to include an Underdark environment, we could just say it's drow, right? It's just a prompt. How do we want to respond to the prompt? It's up to us. What makes sense? What are the race relations? What is going on between the halflings and the elves that are forming the overall majority of the population here? We're going to roll a d20. And actually, I'm just going to roll another 3d20 for the next couple rolls. 3, 4, and 9. So we have 3, 4, 9. And then we're going to need 5 more d20s for what we're going to be doing here. Actually, 6 more. (20, 19, 17). 11, 19, 4. All right, now let's see what all this means since we've cast our bones. Our race relations is 3. There is harmony. There we go. Harmony in wealth, harmony in philosophy or religion, harmony in they actually just got done fighting a bloody civil war and they don't want to have to go through that again. So they're living under peace because they're frankly tired of it all. That could be harmony too. The ruler's status in this hierarchy is number 4. Respected, fair, and just. What is a notable trait about this area? Number 9. The population is mostly wealthy. Oh my goodness. Zulerpai, did you not call this? We have a thieves guild operating in a mostly wealthy coastal city with people who have aspirations of wealth. All right, next up. This place is known for its, number 20, patriotism. This is not the RNG most gamers get when they fire a weapon, says Zulerpai. All right, so we have this hierarchical system where people answer to others. And so supposedly then, I would imagine that doing things like smuggling and the like are ways to try and skip rungs of the ladder so you are climbing more quickly. Now, what is the current calamity that's going on? What is happening? It doesn't have to be a main part of the story. It doesn't have to be the source of the adventure. It could be something in the background. It could be something that's your first quest. It's the hook. The current calamity is 19, where there is a dungeon discovered. Adventurers flock to town. Oh, goodness. All those nice full pockets of outsiders wanting to come to our town to explore a dungeon that was just opened up. Ruins. Maybe this is where the Underdark can come into play. Whatever, like there was a little earthquake or something flooded, knocked down a wall, and suddenly there's hundreds of miles of natural tunnel or old city sewers or something. And now everyone wants a piece. They want to go find treasure in the desert. And you tell them touch nothing but the lamp, but you know they're going to. Now, the town name, or the city name in this case, I don't know yet. If you want to throw out ideas, you can. But let's continue with a little bit more generation. The religious building in town. We're going to continue scrolling. The religious building in town, or at least the big notable one, is 17. A library dedicated to religious study. I think that works out just well, given our party. Especially given our party. The RNG flows through us, everyone. There are 2 humans in our group. How do they fit in the major-minor race balance here? Because they're children and look like halflings. And also, you know, if our city is, I don't know, has 1 million people living in it, there could be, you know, Little Human Town, where there's 10,000 humans living, but it's a big minority of the population. And of course, among 10,000 people, you can still have urchins and orphans or, you know, scrappy kids. You could have people who want wealth. You could have nobles. Yeah, so just because we said that the dominant and minority race are halflings and elves, that doesn't mean that you still can't have an orc or a half orc, let alone if we're saying she's cosmetically human. But especially if we're getting children, human children, and they could disguise them, that they might be able to pass as halflings. Nala is middle-aged, but she's the coordinator, right? She's the Fagin of the group that's taking in kids and training them and giving them better lives. How's the best way to acknowledge height without it being a point of comedy? Playing a dwarf for the first time, I want to make sure I approach the matter tastefully but accurately. You can... Let's see. So you can ask a fellow player, you know, how tall is your character? You know that you're 4'10", and this person says, "Oh, I'm 6'4". And you say, okay, and so you think about it, and when you go to role play it, you can say, and I would urge you not to say my character. Use your character's name. So if the character's name is Adler, Adler walks up to you, stops, looks up, and compliments you on the buttons on your shirt. Now, that could be taken humorously, or it could be shown that if the buttons, I don't know, maybe he has a noble background, and so he described his character as having buttons that are gemstones or something like that. I mean, you could have fun with it, or you could just say that's what he notices, because that's the height. You know, there's a lot of different ways to approach it, but it's all going to be highly contextualized on what's happening at your tabletop and with whom. If your character doesn't like being called short stack or whatever, then through your character express that. Hey, I may be 4'10", but doesn't mean you can make fun of me. I bleed just the same as you. In fact, you better watch out. There's major arteries in those legs. So you can kind of rib back. You could draw the line and say, look, no short jokes. I get it. I'm shorter than you. But you want someone who can get the job done? I'm your man. Or woman. Just address it based on the context that's there and use it to develop your character. Now, there is a tavern in town that is absolutely the place that you want to go. This is the best tavern in our city. Anyone goes here. And what is the tavern's name? 1119, which translates to the Drunken Spider. Gosh, if this isn't turning into Drow Underdark stuff. I mean, we were already talking about it. We're talking about the kids being raised in a Potemkin village of Drow being sent out. The Drow are probably ruling from the shadows underneath the city, and all wealth is gonna flow downhill to them here. But the greatest tavern in the city is called the Drunken Spider. And why is that? Right? We can laugh at this and also look at the sheer coincidence that is pointing that the cosmos needs this to happen. What does the plank hanging outside this place look like? Do we have the tumbled wench? Right? Except she's got a couple more, proportioned legs. Is it so? Or if you want to change it, instead of the Drunken Spider, is it the Drunken Drider? Take it as inspiration. What do we want to do with that? Road to Drider 2019. Back to my first question. How does the human leader of a group fit into the society of halflings and elves? What is the plot element? If there's harmony between the majority races, why can't there be harmony among the others? This is a coastal city, and so if it's a city, we tend to have a more understanding urban environment, and especially if it's one that features a lot of heavy trading, a lot of maritime, there are ships coming from all over here. And so it probably is no big deal to see tieflings walking around the wharf district, to see, Little Human Town, downtown, to find, there's like Little Italy or the German village kind of a thing, where you can have Dragonborn Village that's located in a particular part of the city. So I really don't think that there's too much to have to worry about in terms of why could there be a human who's running a predominantly underground criminal network. Humans, the rats of the Forgotten Realms. Yes, Gallows. Moral dilemma for the chat. You've been traveling along the road, meeting beggars along the way as you approach a town. An entire countryside is suffering a famine, and the beggars are so thick, the more charitable players are starting to become skint on gold. As you enter a town, a mob is yelling and threatening a caravan that has ground to a halt, carrying tens of tons of food through the town. Townsfolk are throwing rocks at the caravan, and the caravan guards are pressing against the crowd. Yep, race isn't an issue. I mean, it could be in a select instance. For some reason, honestly, what if dwarves just honestly piss everyone off? Everyone gets along but the dwarves. Ugh, those dwarves. It could still happen. Or there could be prejudice against a particular faith or philosophy, certain lifestyles. So people may tend to live in harmony, but that harmony could come because everyone mostly practices the same religion. So in that case, the religion, the importance is placed on the religion, not so much your race or your gender or whatever. And so long as you're worshiping the god of the sea, we're cool. But if you're not, even as a halfling or whatever, you're marginalized. That could be the case as well. Right? We have a hierarchy. There's a structure to things. There's a societal structure that everyone's going to respond to. So they still have cabbages. Someone's going to knock over the cabbage cart. Losing weight rapidly, older people are dying. So is the moral conundrum, what do you do about the cart? Or are we the leader that we're passing through the, our people, and we need to come up with a sensible, like a farming practice? And the tavern style of the Drunken Spider is number 4. It is a quiet, low-key bar. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Just like we did for our characters, where we did our random rolls, and now it's time to interpret them, we have drawn information from our players, and I think that we have an amazing setting that we can place them inside. I also think we have content for this coming week. We could probably make a dungeon, right? A dungeon was discovered. Adventurers flock to town. We can make a map. Now, there is some stuff I want to show off here. If you want a quick map of a city, there's a good website to do so. And you can change up the the size that you want it if we want a very large city. So there we go. And then we want to do we want a citadel, a plaza, temple, walls, shantytown, river? So this is coastal with a temple, walls, and a plaza. But we can get rid of these things if we want and play around with a random generator if we didn't want to sit down and plan a city ourselves. And of course, here's all farmland. All right, you want to add a shantytown? Let's add a shantytown. Boom. Look at all the shanties right outside. You want to put a river going out to the coast? Because fresh water is needed? There you go. And this could even be our wall that we were talking about. And we can get rid of it if we want to. Hey, Victor. This is a very good tool. All right, let's throw in a citadel. Wizabark City. Oh, we can name it that if we want to, but we don't have to. Right, there's our citadel. Here's the wall, big old shanty town, a river going through things. Here's some farmland. And so we can take this as inspiration, or, and I'll do this in another stream, we can just draw a map. Use MS Paint. Super easy. Regular old mouse. Regular old MS Paint. And you can come up with some fantastic stuff. Welcome back, Wolfie. That is the site where you can just auto-generate cities based on some prompts that you want to put in. Now, there's some others. You can find one, I think there's one on Donjon. You can find them in a couple other locations as well. This is just one that I decided to feature because it was the first one that I had in my bookmarks. So now we come back down to a medium-sized city. Still have a river, still have our coast. There's our shanty town. It's on the other side of the river. There's our plaza. Roads going out of town. So we can have as much fun with this. In fact, we could treat this like this. This is a city of 1 million people. You know, the scale is really up to us and how we want to handle things. Incarnate, I think, can do that as well. There's a couple others offhand. And again, I think there's one on Donjon. Donjon. Everyone lives in huge apartments. Wouldn't that be nice? So now we have an idea for the core of our city, for the spirit of our city, right? There's desert all around. We're on a coast, or it could be a shore. It could be a freshwater body. Doesn't have to be. We could flip a coin. We could do all sorts of things. Everyone exists in a hierarchy. The ruler's status is respected, fair, and just. And what is the ruler? What if the ruler is a human? Right? If we have the dominant race of halflings and a minority race of elves, they get along maybe, so they're the most populous here. Who's to say that the ruler isn't an impartial third party of a race? Who's to say that it's not a dragonborn that's ruling, because they will be fair to the halflings and the elves because they're neither? Could be interesting. Right? The population is mostly wealthy, so there's going to be a ton of trade. I mean, as much as we see, these 5 little docks here, we're probably talking a large natural port. A deep water natural port at that. That's sheltered. And also there's most likely going to be a river, because you got to have fresh water, even if you're on the salt coast, unless you have machines or magic or something going on that's giving you fresh water from the sea. A civilization like this is going to have to live on 1 or 2 major rivers. I mean, we talked about Babylon and the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, major rivers. You want to look at the old European. We'll go back to generic Western European settlements. What cities are on major rivers? What city is on the Seine, the Danube? What city's on the Thames? You need fresh water for crops. You need fresh water to live. And you need moving water to get rid of waste. If you want to have a bunch of people live in a city. That she's a lich? Well, just you could explain the differences, or just continue to let them continue to have them have the misgiving and keep playing it out, and they'll learn on their own. It's nothing to get upset over, Victor. Western areas can have major areas built due to trade, then evolve as technology does, etc. Wow, cool city. This one is not done, John Tamrick. I'll put the link in the chat again. It's right up above, but I linked to what we're showing on screen. So I'm going to look forward to map this out. I'm not going to map this out tonight, but we have a very interesting place where for sure all 5 of our characters are going to treat this like a playground, and we're going to have a ton of fun. So I bet for this coming week, we'll have a mapping session. I wonder if you know what? Maybe I'll bump up and we'll do mapping tomorrow to cap the week off, since we already have this open. Let me see. What do I have going on here? Normally, this would have been using newspaper stories to create an adventure. You know what? I think I'm going to bump that to next week. And, or if I don't do that, then I think we can finish out the characters and the setting. Because maybe next week I will I'll focus on Salt Marsh. Ghosts of Salt Marsh, which we could even incorporate that into what we're brewing up here. That could be really fun. I'll just have to I'll have to get a copy of my book in a format that you can see easier on screen. But what I do want to do, especially because hey, I live in it's not coastal, but I live in a town that is right on Lake Erie. And it's a small city, 25,000 people. And so when you're doing this, right, we're building a settlement that is on water. What are some things that can happen to cities on water? Now, I don't live next to a desert, but so at any point in time in the city, there could be casual sailing or fishing. In this case, one of the schools made a cardboard boat racing contest. And so you could describe your city as having some sort of a race or something creative, their own unique like little water taxi, like gondolas, in Venice. What other things happen in a city like this? Yes, political hot potatoes. What do the people talk about for improving water quality? Right? Because you have farmland runoff, you have wastewater, a lot of things that can kill off the fish that you need to keep your city thriving or the like. What do you do to make sure you continually have fresh water? Are there seasonal things like algal blooms? What's the fishing like? What's the trade like? Are they pulling out dead bodies every day? Wake up in the morning, it's almost like a race who can find the first dead body floating because crime could be high. Is there something like this? At Put-in Bay, which is one of the Lake Erie Islands, there's the International Perry's Victory and International Peace Memorial. Do you have something like this? So for Lake Erie, it was the War of 1812. Do you have something like this that is a landmark? Could this be something that is a part of the maritime culture, a part of the war? Here also, right by the lake, we have Ohio Bike Week. And so while we're talking about a lot of obvious things, such as boats and water taxis and freighters, because we also get a big coal shipping boats that come in and out. We also get this big like a biker rally. It's kind of like a fair. That there's a lot of things you can do there. It's not just all leather and loud motorcycles. There's concerts and so what if people got together in a particular festival for, I don't know, what would be a measure of what would be another form of transportation along roads or through the desert? Do we go Breath of the Wild and there's sand seals? And so, there's a big sand seal festival, where everyone sort of like brings out their prized breed of sand seal that hauls stuff across the desert. Is there something else that's cultural, such as maybe instead of motorbikes, people like sand surfing? So giant kites that they hold on to, and then they have a wooden board strapped to their feet, and they just sort of coast along the dunes and or the water. And so this is a fun recreation thing people do when the weather's nice, kind of like going out on a motorcycle. And I've been wanting to make sure that I'm buttoning up the things that we're generating to show you just what you can do with them and how you can constantly find innovation in your own backyard. What else happens? What goes on? We're talking about Oh, actually, speaking of large freighters, so here we go. Actually, and I saw these vessels out earlier at the coal docks. But everywhere around you is inspiration. You know, anything could be made into a political plot. Here, let's look at this is something that the local newspaper does as well. So on this day, X years ago, so 75, 50, 25, and 10 years ago, what was in the newspaper on this day that far back? So 75 years ago, Prime Minister Churchill warned today that the Allies will accept only unconditional surrender from Germany and Japan and called for a new post-war world organization armed with, quote, overwhelming military power to prevent future aggression. Is this why we have harmony? Pardon me. Is the harmony here because of this organization that is keeping peace? Could that be where the humans come in? Right? A bunch of human mercenaries that could have been hired in the Civil War have now been contracted to be peacekeepers between the discontented halflings and elves. That could be. Why not? We just made it up and it fits because it does. Because we made it fit and we didn't even have to try that hard. The Great Lakes coal trade remained sluggish in April 10 years ago, reflecting the economy. Total shipments for the month totaled 2.8 million tons, and that's down 25% compared to the prior April. You want to talk about how much coal passes through here. It's really nice seeing the big coal ships passing by. We brought down a water tower in our county because it was no longer needed because of a more efficient pump system. Now, for a while, obviously, this was serving the county, but it became defunct. Better solutions came along, technology improved, or the needs changed. And so, here we are. Could something like this, we're talking about water management. How would a coastal city manage its water? It's fresh water. It's sewer water. How does your municipality handle it? Tamrick, yeah, they can be intimidating. If you need help, just ask in the RPG section. The Great Plains don't have a lot of rivers or lakes, but farming and cities thrive because the aquifer is so accessible to wells. Yes, Bobicus. And we talk about deserts, and that is an oasis is a spring. It's an aquifer. It's in the rocks underneath the sand. Hardworking druids. Yeah, you might just have the city could just have a team of druids or nature clerics, right? Nature clerics that worship the water, that are the ones that are blessing. In fact, the public waterworks could very well be the temple to the nature god. And so, how about this? How about this? Let's say that we have let's see, if we're going to make kind of a natural harbor, this is going to come around like this. That can continue out. Whoops. Apparently I missed a spot somewhere. I see it. I see it. So we have salt water. If we put our temple here, this is just blown up to show what's happening, right? We put it on the water. We're talking about having kind of an underdark or a sewer system or the like. Well, I mean, water's always going to go to the lowest level. And so what we could see here is perhaps the temple is at sea level and itself pours seawater through it down into here. Dun, dun, dun. Here's our metropolitan area. There we go. Isn't it beautiful, everyone? Here's our metropolitan area. We could very well have this be that, if there's not, for some reason, a lot of water that's seeping out this way, we've made a place through magic that also puts a lot of political and power and wealth on this temple. And a good place for villains and heroes alike to rise. But now, we have a series, instead of aqueducts that are above ground, we actually have kind of a sewer system that distributes water all through the area. And there's probably, let's see, let's put maybe there's some sort of like underground, there's some kind of underground reservoir. Right, so we have our main circuit of water here, and there's probably going to also be some sort of discharge or something. And then, of course, there's all the little, like, sub-pipes and the like. And then we could also have here's the freshwater distribution, and then, different blocks all have their sewage. So we're designing our city almost like these are sewage drop-off points. And then these are all meant to sluice out, so that this will cross over. These all kind of flow into one another. And then all of these are just meant to flow out into the sea. Or if they didn't want it to flow out into the sea, they would use the desert like a natural filter and some way pump or cajole the water magically or mechanically. What they would do is they treat the desert like a big septic tank. And you could end up having the water, the wastewater, be pumped out too. So here's all the collection stations, and something happens that the water pumps out here. And so you have a big open area of wastewater that is then dried. And of course, now if you don't know this, wastewater treatment plants harvest the biological substances in the sewage. They rake it out over concrete, let it dry, and they sell it as fertilizer. It's a good way to kind of recoup the cost. And so this could be a way, is it the best job ever? Not necessarily, but it's certainly crucial and vital. And it could even fall under the same clerics here. But someone's got to scoop the poop. And that makes fertilizer so that you can have farmland on the outskirts of town growing stuff in the desert. Because you might have water and that's fine. What about the nutrition of the soil? And so the people who eat the products and then eliminate them, along with any other garbage, like whatever fish are caught and the bones are thrown out. So they might actually have on the outskirts of town some kind of like big open septic tanks. Not close enough you'd catch a whiff, but the water will filter back through and be clean. And then all the muck that's left behind can get scooped up and placed on the farmland out here. Now, of course, that's how in Lake Erie, we have a conversation about how much manure farmers use, because then you get a bunch of algal bloom happening in the lake. But, you know, that's its own debate. Nobles took without any responsibility to give anything military protection, but the church has a duty to give back that could leave unfulfilled. Matty Morg's the man who can make Microsoft Paintworks look like a true art form. Well, I appreciate it. This is all super simple stuff, though. You could do this at home, Victor. I'm nothing special. You forgot what the crisis is? Dun, 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 dun. The crisis is a dungeon was discovered that is causing new adventurers to flock to town. And the dungeon, the dungeon can certainly, it could be below ground. It could be like a pyramid that was uncovered by shifting sands. It could be, I don't know, something out on the water. There's a lot we could do with that. Political corruption is a thing, as a thing was the 1300s and forward issue, says Babacus. Zuler Pie says, yes, septic tanks are very effective at avoiding polluted water, but need periodic cleaning, which can make good fertilizer. Yep. And so, because we got to think about that. Where is our society getting fresh water and food? We need this to survive. Where are we getting fresh water and food? Also, I do want to remind you, while we did roll desert, deserts aren't necessarily barren, tropical superheated areas. This could be a tundra-style desert, if we wanted it to be. And so everything is permafrost. Throwing that out there, we could go with a kind of a traditional, heated, hot desert, rather than a cold desert. But don't forget that a desert is just simply a description for a dry area. And cold can definitely produce dry areas. Yep, no problem, Zuler Pie. Fallon says the magicians had a thing where the magic started to drain from the land and crops started to fail. One of the kings from the regular world ended up having to convince the people to throw their poop to yeah, that could be, right? Everyone was just trading, everything was booming, things were growing, but maybe the infrastructure didn't keep up, and it was getting to be too big. It was causing problems until an outside source came in and taught them about fertilize your land. Make not aquifers, not aqueducts, irrigation ditches to teach them how to irrigate the desert. I mean, having some basic, water and everything probably turned this into a boom town, a nice deep sea, deep sea natural port to protect from a lot of wind and rain and storms. Already, people are going to flock here for safety and shelter. But if it grew too quickly, you're in an economic boom right now. There's so much going around. You'd have to try to be poor here. Maybe that's the prevailing attitude anyway. But there's a lot you can do. And I sincerely hope that you did find this to be inspirational and a lot of fun. But you know what, everyone? It is 3:38 a.m. and I need to crash. I took a nap earlier. I ended up oversleeping for D&D time, and I'm gonna have to get to bed. So I hope you like this. We'll come back tomorrow and map this out. I think that'd be fun to map this out and talk about it a little bit more. And then we'll see where we go with it. We could probably work it into Saltmarsh somehow if I want to pick that up for next week. We'll see. Around 11 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, Tamarick. All right, Zuler Pie, thanks for hanging out with us. No one has sponsored any boxes today, Fallon. So maybe tomorrow. We shall see. 9 a.m. your time? Okay. Well, if you can't, Tamrick, I understand. Look, you all have lives to live. You're in different time zones. Like right now, it's 3:39 a.m. my time. And, you know, different days of the week have different things to it. But I still appreciate you all being here and spending whatever time you can. Now, what I'd like to do, let's go raid We Are Nerdsmith, who are live, because they raided us with a goodly amount of people. Let's give them a little bit of raid love, shall we, everyone? /raid We Are Nerdsmith. Thank you all so much for another awesome workshop filled with fun and conversation and learning and all kinds of things. It's always an amazing time to spend with you all, and I'm so very happy. Unfortunately, my frail mortal body requires sleep. Otherwise, we do this a lot more often. But let's go have some fun. Let's go watch some of the D's and D's be played. And we are going to give them some love and support, as they have come by and raided us a couple times, and now we get to return the favor. Haha. So once I'm through Ad Purgatory, it's talking about the new Samsung phone right now. Let's go give them a raid. Anyway, peace to you all, and I'll see you around.